Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to part 3 of our workshops on housing options for adults on the autism spectrum. Tonight's session is entitled Innovative Family-Driven Supportive Housing from Idea to Implementation. My name is Dr. Bruce Ettinger, and I'm the director of Spectrum 360. And we have two presentations. One is from Keldrick Wright from the WILO housing program, and the second is Nathaniel Diskint from CoHome. Both of these gentlemen have helped develop and form very innovative and creative housing opportunities, and I know some of our families are involved in them. So we'll give them each a chance to present their model. First, I'll tell you a little bit about, for anyone that is new on this webinar and hasn't been in the past two, Spectrum 360 is an organization whose mission is to provide the highest quality educational and therapeutic program for children with learning, language, and social emotional challenges to achieve their maximum potential as responsible adults in society, and to serve as a leader and promoting the following innovative educational programs. We have two schools, and basically our population is made up of children, young adults, and adults ranging from age 3, and our oldest is 40, on the autistic spectrum and with related disabilities. We have two schools, Academy 360 Lower School, located in Verona, Academy 360 Upper School, located in Livingston, Independence 360, whose main branch is in Whippany, and also has a branch in Livingston as well. Culinary Academy 360, which is located in Livingston, and our Film Academy 360, which is located in Livingston as well. Together in all our programs, we serve 400 individuals. The purpose of these housing webinar series is provide information and research to help the Spectrum 360 community and the broader community navigate the complex residential system and help families secure the most innovative residential options best suited to meet their future needs. And what we've been learning from the past workshops, first one was given by Attorney Lisa Pauls, and the second was given by Diane Riley from SHA and Tom Toronto, that there are a lot of more exciting opportunities opening up in funding and availability of housing for adults that I think is going to keep increasing. We're going to be having our final webinar next week. Next slide, please. We're going to have our final webinar next week, October 6th, and where the innovative housing model will continue. And we're going to be having Brad Walker from Next for Autism presenting another very incredible housing option. And Lisa Pauls will be returning, and Keldrick to answer any questions you may have. All previous housing webinars can be found on the link provided. And then on October 15th, we're going to have a very important workshop, Securing the Financial Future of Your Loved Ones with Special Needs. And we have a wonderful speaker, Donald Brown, that has presented a lot at SHA, and he's nationally known for how to have your finances in order to maximize services that you might need for your adult in the area of housing and other areas. Any questions you have for Keldrick and Nathaniel will be held until after they both present. And you can submit them to the Q&A chat room throughout this presentation. I'd like to introduce now both speakers. Keldrick Wright is the executive director of WILO, New Jersey. He began his career as a certified crisis prevention and intervention trainer and a teacher assistant at North Essex Community Healthcare in Belleville, where he worked with children with emotional and behavioral disorders. He provided crisis intervention at Mount Carmel Guild Academy, and for 5 years, he served as vocational director for ECLC and became, at their New Jersey Pride program. He's worked and been co-director of Gateway of Social Opportunity, a community-based weekend activity group for children and adults with special needs. And in 2014, he began creating housing solutions for adults who seeks more independence, and he currently manages several homes, providing overnight weekend respites, and he also runs community-based weekend activities. And I know a number of our families children are involved in their programs. They speak very highly of it. At this time, I'd also like to introduce Nathaniel Diskint. Nathaniel's the executive director of and co-founder of CoHome Incorporated. In 2018, he developed New Jersey's first and only inclusive home for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The house, located in the heart of Morristown Historic District, is now home to 4 individuals with IDD and 4 individuals without, who live together as peers. Residents enjoy a gently structured social calendar where housemates are just that, and every activity is an inclusive activity. Those needing assistance create self-directed support service plans which promote a person-centered approach. Nathaniel continues to advocate for more inclusive housing opportunities and is actively working to develop additional properties and expand the model to offer additional services. Previously, he founded a startup medical device company based on an innovative flow metering technology he developed during his undergraduates at George Washington University. And I'm sure, as he shared with me, he's just acquired another property where he's going to be developing retail opportunities for disabled. Okay, at this point, it's my great pleasure to turn it over to our first speaker.
Great. I think that would be me. Thank you, Dr. Edinger, for having me. Thank you, Melissa, for everyone at Spectrum 360 in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, for allowing this to happen and for allowing us to share information with you. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm going to share my screen now with you, because if I don't follow my script, I'll go beyond my script, and I don't want to go eat into Nathaniel's time. So I'm going to save some time for Nate, and let me go over to share my screen now. Okay. All right. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and start with my presentation. I think I can be heard, so I'm just going to dive right in. So my name is Keldrick Wright, as Dr. Edinger said. I started a housing program here in Maplewood, New Jersey in 2014. So it's been almost 6 years. And so, anyway, we have now grown to having several houses under our belt now, and a few other programs that we've expanded into, which I'll explain and dive into with you. So let's just dive right in here. So who the heck is Keldrick anyway? So I always get asked this question. A lot of people see me around, will come up to me and just want to know who I am, because they've heard things about WILO or about the work I've done in the field. And so, and I always just tell people I'm just a guy with a big heart who answered the call to provide housing to people who desperately needed it. And I didn't have necessarily a blueprint for how that was going to happen. I just put one foot in front of the other, made a lot of phone calls, did a lot of homework and a lot of research, and just literally let one step lead to the next step to get to where we are today. I do have a BA in Human Services and Business Management. I am the founder and executive director of WILO and Nathaniel. I've been in the special needs industry for almost 20 years now. And as Dr. Edinger explained, I've been did a lot of work in crisis intervention and all of that, which led me to the path that I'm on now, which I'll explain. So the screen you're looking at now is just a quote that I like to share with people that I always try to remind myself of. And it just simply says, surround yourself with the dreamers, the believers, and the thinkers. And most of all, surround yourself with those who see greatness within you, even when you don't see it within yourself. Clearly, how we landed at this place with WILO and Jay is purely because there were a group of families who dreamed, who believed, and who helped think outside the box with me. And together on a journey, we've carved out this path that we're on today. So there are some pictures for you to look through. You probably recognize some of these faces. A couple of these are, in fact, Independence 360 families, the people who come through Spectrum 360. So you may recognize some familiar faces there. So what is WILO all about? I know the reason why most of you are here is to hear about the housing part, which I promise you I'm going to get to. I'm going to start by just going a little bit about some other parts of our program. Let's start with our WILO Recreation. So how this all got started, really, where I was working with families and getting to know young adults and children on the spectrum, is by doing social recreational events on the weekends. And so that started WILO Recreation. And so with WILO Rec, we go on trips to like Broadway shows, we go to Yankee games and Mets games, and we go to all kinds of theater events and beach trips and casinos and all the fun stuff that all the guys enjoy doing, that I love doing. I love right alongside them, apple picking, bowling, all the movie nights, all the things that we sometimes take for granted, but it's so much fun when we all get together and do these kinds of events together. And so a large part of our recreation program feeds into our housing program. So people get interested just by meeting some of the residents and meeting me out on trips, and then they'll ask questions about housing, and then that usually leads to the next step. So WILO Recreation is one of the ways that we introduce everyone into the program. It's a way for us to get to know your loved one who has special needs, and for us to get to know you as a family, and for you to get to know a little bit more about our organization as well. Some of the outcomes of our WILO Recreation program is obviously social interaction. We can have anywhere from 20 to 45 people on a trip, going all over the state, as I mentioned earlier. We focus on community safety and awareness. We do travel training, crossing streets, just how do we, behave and get through navigating our communities better. Problem solving, there's never a time that a trip, I love to be able to say there's never a reason to problem solve. However, there's always something to problem solve on a trip, be it a social problem or someone's having an emotional issue. So we do problem solving, just conflict resolution, period. There's always conflict. So we manage that, teach people problem solving skills. But most importantly, we want the young adults who join us to just simply come and have a good time and have fun. So we just throw caution to the wind and just let our hair down and have fun together. And it's always a really, really good time that unfortunately, due to COVID, most of the places that we would frequent are now closed. There is no Broadway, there is no theater. A lot of the sporting events are still not open as well. So we have not put out normally there's a schedule that comes out in the spring and one that comes out in the fall. But we have not released a fall schedule yet, but simply because there's just not a lot of options, and we want to keep everyone safe, obviously. So I'll go ahead. So once we get into housing, one of the things that we work on as an organization is skills training. Give me 1 second. if you see that okay, skills training. So there's a lot of skills that go into living independently. And so many people usually approach this with very optimistically, which you should, absolutely. But we have to really focus on these things when residents come to live with us. And we always lead with the fact that we will always help the residents get to everything they have to get to, but we don't do it for you. So if it comes to making your bed, if it comes to sweeping and mopping, if it comes to taking care of your hygiene, clearly there are some people whose needs require more hand-on-hand when it comes to personal hygiene. But for the most part, we really push our residents to reach their maximum potential and to do things as independently as possible, even down to preparing a meal. So we focus on laundry skills training. That includes washing, drying, and folding, and ironing our clothes. We do leisure skills training. You'd be surprised like how much people just find it difficult to navigate free time and free space. And so we spend a lot of time teaching our guys how to navigate to their interests, their leisure skills, cooking skills, health and wellness. We do a lot of menu planning and food shopping together. We literally sit down and plan out a menu for every resident every single week. And we make healthy choices. And we go to the supermarket and we buy what we need for the week. Everyone uses their own cards to pay for their own groceries and come back and they store it in their own section in the home. And then they get to practice those skills in the community and at home. Hygiene, as we spoke about, usually we use something, incorporate a checklist, basic things. And I always tell the residents, you know, your job within the program is to take care of yourself. And one way that I know you're taking care of yourself, at least, is to do a checklist. And so my guys they get the skills training to know how to check off if they brushed their teeth. And obviously there's some competency skills training when they come in to make sure they're doing it properly and all of that stuff. And so they do a checklist. And I check their checklist every morning for those who actually, for those who don't know, not only did I start WILO, I'm still in the original WILO home, the first WILO home. So I've been in this house now for almost 6 years with 2 residents, and we're still rocking strong. So everything that I teach and preach, I also live it and do it because I'm a live-in counselor myself. So we'll get into more about the model a little bit later, but travel training, medication management, obviously our residents take their self-medication usually. However, we do have an LP and nurse on staff who rotates around to the houses to do medication management with our residents. And we, have to do the same DDD protocols and MAR sheets and documenting their medications and all of that. But we teach them how to set it up, how to look for what they're taking. It's important that they recognize the medication and their dosages. And so for those who have the capacity to do that, we teach them to do that as independently as possible. Money, skills, and budgeting is a huge part of our program. Again, we don't accept anyone's Social Security check. I know there's different models where some programs in a license setting may require the entire Social Security check, for instance. Our residents maintain their own balance or their own accounts. So we do a lot of money management, seeing how much they have in the bank account, how much they're able to spend for the week in groceries and extracurricular activities, all of that we do through our program. Grocery shopping I spoke about earlier, and menu planning I also spoke about earlier. So. Other services that WILO provides, if you're looking at the pictures here, we provide transportation. So we have a couple of 15-passenger vans. Access Link is a wonderful thing. However, for our program, we have now 7 homes within Maplewood and South Orange. And it just became more beneficial to us to provide our own transportation rather than having Access Link. And then we all know how the windows work, and sometimes it may take a little bit longer than anticipated to get home or to arrive at program. So we have our own transportation. We also provide speech therapy for those who have speech therapy written in their plans. Individual supports, behavioral supports. We contract with a licensed behaviorist, a BCBA, to provide supports for those who need that. WILO Works, if you're looking at your screen, the picture on the bottom left and right side are 2 of our residents who work at a local restaurant. So a large part of, we don't have a vocational program that we build through DVRS or anything like that. Is literally just community building. So if we go to a restaurant and we frequent a place, we make it our business to get to know that restaurant and the owner and that establishment. And we introduce ourselves and say, you know what, we have guys who are interested in working in whatever capacity they can. And we usually end up in a partnership where they carve out space for our guys to come and learn how to do food prep, learn how to do dishwashing, all of that stuff, front of the house maintenance with cleaning the tables and making pizza boxes and all of that. And then we eventually, if it all works out, then they hire our guys and they start working. So we have a few of our guys out of 17 residents full-time, 4 of them are gainfully employed, which is great. We have respite services. Our respite program typically feeds into our housing program. Respite means that we may create space for someone to come into our homes and like spend a night or do an overnight or do dinner, go do some activities with us on a short-term level to get to know you better before we approach housing with you. So our respite program is great for that. Obviously the WILO weekends, the WILO recreation program is also through respite. We do community-based supports and community inclusion, just to name a few of the things that we do. Creative housing solutions. So I'm going to, I think I have it embedded in here just to go through a video, which I'll get to soon. So we have, of 7 properties that we have right now, 5 of them are properties that are owned. Those are on your screen right now, just so you can get an idea. But these are nice homes. They're in the community. They're just a regular house in the neighborhood with everyone else. And we treat it as such. We get to know our neighbors get to know us so that they respect who we are and what we do. But we keep it private. There's no signs outside the door that says WILO program lives here or anything like that. We want to respect our residents' privacy. And we want to make sure that they are just looked and viewed and treated as regular community members within their community. So that part has worked really well for us. We have 2 houses that are in South Orange. The top left and the top right are in South Orange, and then we have 3 homes right now that are in Maplewood. So that's our general area, Maplewood, South Orange. It just works for us to have our houses be in close proximity to each other, logistically, staffing-wise, transportation-wise. And so I often do get asked a question, and I've been approached many times about expanding to other counties and other areas. We may get there one day, but for now, it just makes sense for us to keep our little community close-knit here in our own town that we're in now, so in Maplewood and South Orange. So I'm going to play this video. It's about a 4-minute video, so it's not super long. But rather than me explaining everything and you'll get tired of hearing my voice, it's just a more creative way for you to hear other families' experiences, why they came to WILO and why we do what we do. And I'll just let that play out here. I was hired to work with a young man who was in crisis with his family. He was having a lot of behavioral problems. From that, a conversation was held between his parents and myself about how can we make this happen where their son could be a part of a program or a part of a housing situation where he had these ongoing supports. Why is it important that we drink more water? Right. Stay hydrated. Just stay hydrated and kind of keep your system flushed and just keep a lot of sick medication.
I'd like to say we did carefully
Rick, we're having some issues with the audio with the video.
I remember one of the first days that I was dropping him off at the house and he whipped out his key and, went up to the door. And I was so thrilled and I knew he felt really good about it too. Like, and he'll say, I'm going home. And that's just, you know, the first time I heard him say that, it was a little bittersweet. Being a part of that and being a part of helping him achieve his goals is just something I look forward to every week. I could not have imagined that being possible. And I have time to start thinking about myself and what it is that I might want to do, you know, in my next chapter. He has a life of his own, and it's exactly, you know, what I would wish for him.
Brian is the charmer. What is he would say his nickname is the mayor. Brian has Down syndrome and just an all-around all-star character. So if Jonathan could, you know, wake up every day in an amusement park, that is what he would live, eat, breathe. I'm excited for his first ride on Joker.
When he called it home for the first time, I didn't cry. I was so relieved. There was a weight that had been lifted off our entire family's shoulders. He considers this place home. He is comfortable enough here. When we take him for the weekends now, he's okay to come back.
Working with these amazing individuals has brought so much to my life. I am amazed every day at all the things that they can accomplish despite everything that they have going against them. They have truly made my life worth every little bit of what I do easy, fulfilling, and happy.
I'm like overcome with joy when I see the engagement of how they interact with each other and they care about each other and they're like a family unit. It's not like guys being taken care of by caregivers. It's a family. They truly believe that there's human beings out there that were called to do this. The magic can happen.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that little video presentation. That says more than I can probably ever say. Let me get past this, hold on. Speaks volumes, obviously more than I think I could ever speak. Hearing it directly from the families who have been a part of this. And we literally, as a part of WILO, we do treat each other as family, and we, you know, we engage as such. And let me make sure I didn't go too far back here. Sorry, hold on one second. And so we do a lot of things together. We operate as a family unit, and that is a different model than most are probably familiar with. Probably a different model than some might even be comfortable with or want. I'm the first to say that WILO is not, you know, for everybody, and obviously everyone is not for WILO either. But for those who get this model and who understand it and who actively participate in it in healthy ways, reap the benefits of it. As you saw in one of the videos of Brian dancing, we traveled together. I wanted to go on a vacation on a cruise, and several of our residents expressed that they wanted to go too. So we all went on a cruise to the Bahamas together. So those are the kinds of like spontaneous things that we do. I've been to Vegas with some of my guys. So we do a lot of just fun, just good stuff. You know, I like to travel, and one of my philosophies is that I will always treat you know, anyone who comes into our organization as if they're my own brother or sister, because I would want them to be treated with the utmost dignity, respect as well. And so I treat everyone that comes into our organization the exact same way, ready to be loved on, hopefully. And so that's a part of our history and our journey that you got through the video. As you see on some of the pictures here, just some of the activities that we've done, that we continue to do all the time. In our housing, everyone gets a pool, Liquid Pool Township pool membership. So we go to the pool together every summer. We took a trip to New York post-COVID. Well, still not post-COVID, but when things were safe to go into New York again. We take our guys for manicures and pedicures as part of hygiene. We take them to hair salons to get their haircuts and washed and trimmed and whatever they need to do at barbershops. Do a lot of sporting events and things like that with our guys as well. So I'm going to get right into what you're probably all asking about, how this model works. So our model is one where I work with families to acquire homes. These are homes that the families will own, either in their own name or the name of a special needs trust. And so there is a lot of trust and communication that has to be developed between myself and our organization and the parents who are going to invest this money into buying a home. And we want to make sure that everyone is comfortable because we're going to be in bed together, for lack of a better term, for a lifetime to come, which is what we want. So we want to make sure that it's right for everyone. And so buyer vetting is one of the first steps that we do. That usually involves someone reaching out to me saying, hey, we're interested in WILO. I want to know about what you do. I'll schedule a couple of interviews where we come in and just chat with each other. I'm very easy to talk to. I'll take you around on a few tours to see some of the residents. We'll go through some application stuff and just explore funding, where you are currently, and pricing and how all of that works. There is no cookie cutter recipe for every house that we have. Every single home that is purchased and owned has a different setup, and that's okay too. Because the same recipe doesn't work necessarily for everyone all the time. It is largely the same, but if someone has a name in the special needs trust versus a private ownership versus two families bought a home together, which is also an option, it just changes the dynamics of how we do the business end of things, not necessarily the program content. And then we do more vetting. If you decide that, I think you want to go forward with purchasing a home for your son or daughter or loved one, to be a part of the WILO program, then we do more vetting. We look at who potential housemates might be. We generally do keep a waiting list of people who are exploring housing options and who are waiting and looking and just waiting for the right opportunity. And so it's equally important as it is to have people who purchase homes, is likewise important to have people who simply are going to come in as renters within that home. And so I break down the whole financial model with families as to how it all works. So that way, if you go through the steps of purchasing a home, then we already have the formula together before anyone signs on a dotted line, and we know that the house can be opened and operate as smoothly as possible from the onset. Then after doing more vetting, and I have in here on step 2 more vetting, and I said staffing and support needs. I did want to mention that our model is one where we do have a live-in caretaker who lives at every house. And so that is something that's uniquely different. For instance, I started the program with the house that I'm currently in right now. And I live here. However, I still work, I still have a life, and I still travel, and I still do my thing, outside of WILO. And so it doesn't become necessarily the person who lives in the home responsibility to care for 3 people full-time by themselves, and that's it. We have, 30 plus support staff on our team now. That includes an LPN nurse, it includes a licensed social worker, it includes a contract with behaviorist, speech pathologist. We have a health and a nutritionist. We have a whole array of people in our village who help to take care of the homes, including additional support staff. So everything doesn't fall on one person. We don't expect the model for everything to fall on one person, because they'd be burnt out and they just wouldn't last long in the model. And so we want to make sure that our staff are paid well. We make sure that they are cared for, and that at the end of the day, whoever we're identifying to be the live-in person has as much responsibility as they do liberties and freedoms, because it can't feel like a prison for them for the next, hopefully, lifetime. So we'll get more into that with those who have specific questions for me down the road and how it all works. But I just want to clarify that. And then we can move into purchasing the perfect home. One of the things we look for is that it's walkable to shops and restaurants and things that our residents can do. One reason why I have not ventured out into faraway places this far is because, I want the residents to have a place that they feel like they can be a part of an actual active, lively, vibrant community and not be secluded. And there's some great, lovely properties I've seen out in the country areas, more rural areas. but they just won't work for the current model that we have. So it has to be within walking distance to shops and restaurants. It has to be within an access link route. Not that we use access link typically because we have our own transportation, but it's still important that they have access to trains if we want to get to New York City on the train, things like that. So I look for communities that are very accessible to the homes. And then it comes down to how many residents do we want in the home, and do we want, you know, a live-in, your son or daughter plus 2 other housemates, or, you know, so that all comes down to how many bedrooms and bathrooms and the whole landscape of the house. And then we do a house hunt and house search and find the perfect home. Even throughout that process, we're working with DDD to make sure you have your SSI set up, your DDD fundings in place. All of those things are in order. And then step 5 is to live happily ever after. And I said a question mark there because I don't live with any illusions of grandeur. That, you know, this is a very hard work and it's a very hard road. A lot of challenges that we face are, you know, residents who come from their parents' home. And this is like boot camp 101, where they're literally having to do most everything for themselves with assistance and coaching. But it's a tough challenge for a lot of the guys to adapt to, but they always get it. They're fully supported and loved. But happily ever after comes down the road. And I do think the first part that you need to hear, I want to express, is that it is a journey. As a parent, as someone who's had your hands on the steering wheel for a very long time, 30 years, 40 years, some people come to me, 50 years even, where you've been the sole caregiver for your young adult. And so sharing the steering wheel is a journey that we walk with the parents. And then eventually we have the parent take their hands off the steering wheel. And then we ask the parent to sit in the back seat. And then we ask the parent to get out of the car, you know, because one day we have to, you know, prepare the young adults who are within the program for the fact that we're not going to be here forever. And so I lead every decision I make with how we're going to set this up for them to exist after I'm not here and you're not here. And so that drives a lot of my decision making and how we operate. And it's training wheels for everybody at first. So, but the happily ever after it does come. And for those families who get it and who has gotten it now, they are, I think, experiencing their happily ever after, where families have taken vacation for the first time together, gone out to dinner for the first time, just husband and wife, without, you know, having their loved one to care for with them. So I hear a lot of those stories over the years. So anyway, so that's a little bit more just about the basic steps. I know I've said probably too much or a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm going to yield my time at this point in time by just saying thank you to everyone for listening to me yap for the last probably half hour. I lost track of time. And ways that you can contact me are on the screen. My email address is there. Jennifer Moy, who's our program director, her email address is there, our main office number. If you happen to be on Facebook, you can find us by following our Facebook page, WILO and J. And I look forward to hearing from you and having any additional questions that you might have about our model and how we operate and how we work. So thank you. Melissa, am I yielding to you now?
Yeah, thank you. So Nate, I'm gonna have you, if we could just stop sharing the screen, Keldrick, and I'll have Nate just take over from here. Thank you so much, that was great. And the video was very empowering and emotional. I was tearing up over here. And funny, I liked his dance on the cruise.
Oh yeah, he won the competition, by the way.
Oh, yeah. He should have. I don't think anyone could top that. Well, thank you so much, Keldrick. I appreciate it. So Nathaniel, I'll let you and Nate, as we all been calling you, take it from here. And as Bruce had said, Nate runs the organization called CoHome. So thank you again for your time, and I'll let you get started.
Thanks, Melissa. That was great, Keldrick. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you. Great. So my name is Nate Diskint, and I run CoHome. I'm a sibling. My younger brother, Jeremy, has Down syndrome. He's 26. And when he turned 21, you know, I guess a story a lot of you may be familiar with, as a family, we started looking at what was next for him. I was working with medical devices at the time, a little bit far afield. And looking around at the different options that were out there, we weren't able to find something that we thought really respected his dignity as an individual. He was mainstreamed in school growing up, and so something that we really saw lacking was the opportunity for folks with special needs to exist with folks without special needs beyond the mainstream classroom. So something that we see a lot of folks with special needs struggle with is most of the folks who are neurotypical, whom they engage with, are paid to be with them. And that creates its own very particular social dynamic. And that's very different from a peer relationship. Both have their benefits, and most, if not all, of our residents need support staff. So that's, of course, accommodated. But being able to have, friends, peers, role models, advisors who are not paid staff, we found totally changes the picture. So sharing a little bit more here. So it's hard to say what exactly CoHome is because we're not one thing. I started the first home in 2016 because we were looking for housing for Jeremy. That's a picture of Jeremy right there. So knowing Jeremy's particular needs, my family and I were able to say, this is a housing situation that would work really well for him for this time, right? Housing can also be contextual. We weren't looking for a permanent housing solution for him, understanding that, for example, myself, like many others, we go through contextual housing, right? Stage of life housing. So let's say you go to college, you live in a particular type of housing there. You graduate from college, you maybe move home now, but or you live in a different type of housing. Housing can evolve and change based on a person's needs. So we really were not looking at the DDD model of permanent housing, although all of our housing may be permanent and our folks may choose to live in our homes, indefinitely. But we, create a plan, a person-centered plan around the individual for what their home should look like. And so we have a variety of housing options at this point, which reflect the needs of those folks who are living there. So that can be, we have an apartment, we have a very large shared home that also has a transition program in it. We have a smaller shared home. We're working on a somewhat large in-town apartment, a smaller in-town apartment, and we're actually building our own retail space right now in downtown Morristown, where our folks will be able to also have employment. Oh, went a little too far. So this person-centered approach is really something that I believe makes us unique. But around this, and I guess a pivotal pillar in our mission is inclusive living. So we believe that segregated housing, and I'm going to define that as any housing which exclusively provides housing or residential opportunities for folks only with special needs, right? So that would be segregated housing, and the only people who are neurotypical in those environments being some form of staff. So we have what we call inclusive housing, where we have folks with special needs and folks without special needs living together. They create a house culture together. They create house rules and guidelines through which to operate. And also, it's important to recognize that the scale of our homes varies, right? There's not, it's not the typical DDD, 4-bedroom home. We have everything from a, let's see, a 2-bedroom to an 8-bedroom. So lots in between. And we believe that this mainstreamed housing provides for the least restrictive housing environment, which is a really important metric that we're very familiar with in schools, but has not been introduced to housing yet. Inclusive living also provides CoHome a market dynamic where we have highly discerning tenants who can sometimes better communicate to us when there's property management issues that need to be attended to. I guess, some years ago in a group home, there was a terrible scalding incident, which could have been avoided, if staff or neurotypical individuals or individuals of other abilities were living in the home and were able to, tell that the scalding guard wasn't working. Just by having neurotypical people in the home, we get this built-in feedback and oversight from folks who aren't invested in our mission, like our staff are, right? Like I am, and are able to communicate to, those needs to us. We also encourage provider choice. So we separate ourselves from the supportive services that are delivered in our homes. So we separate the residential provider on one side from the supportive service provider. Separating those services means that we have a lot more accountability, and we also have a lot more choice. So our residents can choose to work with one of our preferred providers. We can provide recommendations for support brokerage and self-directed employees to agency-based supports. Right? There's really not one size fits all. And some folks will even use a blended program, some some agency-based and some self-directed. So what CoHome does is we provide the infrastructure for the home. We do all the tenant selection. We schedule a baseline, right? We call it a floor, not a ceiling, of social activities and kind of calendared events. And we also, keep the homes running. We provide staff orientations, facilitate resident transitions into the home, because that can be a touchy time, like Keldrick spoke about. And then on the social side, we have social programs. Like every week, we do a shared meal. We have certain touch points that are consistent across all CoHomes, like a shared meal. We do a monthly community-based activity where we go out together. COVID has made that a little tricky, but we've gotten creative. Hikes and picnics are great. These social opportunities are all elective. We don't demand that anyone, has to show up if they choose not to. We like to offer opportunities for engagement and just respect individual choice. So just like I mentioned, some of the activities we have a weekly, family-styled meal. We have our own nutritionist-made cookbook. It's really a highlight to have food. Food always brings people together. It's like a Thanksgiving every week. And then we have in-home activities happen on a weekly basis. It can be game night, arts and crafts, baking. Again, food tends to always be involved somehow. And then our CBAs, community-based activities, are a chance to get out in the community and really be involved. All our properties are within walking distance, so that we don't necessarily have any dogma about requiring that. We recognize that many of our residents, don't drive, and so would struggle in more isolated environments. But we also respect that some folks may need to be in a home that's a little bit more tucked away. So we are definitely open to that. And then we have a CoHome Social Club, which is pretty unique and new for us, where this is what is referred to, I guess, in early childhood education as a facilitated social learning group, where our residents and RAs get together in a facilitated environment and have fun, learn about each other, learn important life skills and social skills. Yeah, that's a new program as of this year, kind of born out of COVID. Some of the other, services that CoHome provides, right, as self-directed housing, we recognize that there are some additional attention that CoHome will have to provide to the housing. So we do inventory services. Some of these, I guess, they fall into the category of like concierge services. So we provide soup to nuts, from dish soap, light bulbs, cleaning solution. COVID's required masks and gloves and the rest of it. And then on the building side, we spend a lot of attention on having really beautiful homes that on first instinct, folks don't necessarily associate with their image of a group home. We have one 1860s Victorian. We have an 1880s smaller Victorian, a modern building. But CoHome will provide, all the lawn maintenance, housekeeping, all those things that can help keep our folks safe and comfortable. So as a promoter of self-directed, support staff, right? So all our residents can access agency-based support staff, or they can access self-directed staff. Many of our residents access both. One thing we find is really important, because these staff are coming into shared environments, and we want to be able to ensure a high quality of care, is we make sure all staff are going through our own training. And so, this is an opportunity for us to talk about how we do things, what makes our city unique, what does it mean to be in an inclusive house? How does that inform our decisions of what to do in terms of assisting residents with activities of daily living, right? Everything from helping with morning hygiene to scheduling, money management, finding employment, the whole gamut. I guess I keep using this term, another thing that makes CoHome unique, but this is really no exception. We really value our residents' parents or other supporters. So we bring those folks together, right? Guardians, parents, anyone who really wants to be involved as an advocate for a resident into our community advisory board. And this is an opportunity for those family members, guardians. We even have just interested community members participate, and they get to provide us another level of important feedback. How are we doing? What are ways that they think we could improve? What are things that they would like to, see happen in our next year, goals? There's no perfect model, but we keep trying to get closer to what works really well for our residents. So having that extra level of feedback is really important to us. They also help plan seasonal activities. Could be a celebration for the fall. We're actually having one mid-October. Whole community's getting together. They help with fundraising, for particular targeted things. Maybe it's a capital improvement, maybe it's programming. And they also help us advocate. Every once in a while, we have to go in front of a zoning board for an application. Maybe we're trying to grow the program, acquire another property, and they'll help us advocate for additional, housing opportunities, as well as the new employment opportunities that we're creating for 2021. That building's slated to open. So, communication, going, kind of to the heart of what we do is we create a floor, not a ceiling, in terms of the activities we offer our residents. And so we also, have a newsletter, and we have an online calendar. This way, parents, the support staff, the resident, there are a lot of moving parts here. So communication is key. So we have a lot of different mechanisms that we use to keep everyone in the loop. That also includes, on-call support, an email that we use for support staff, families, and residents. And then we also have, you can't get better than the in-person meeting, although Zoom is, I guess, in a close second that we're all getting used to. And so we facilitate monthly meetings with families, residents, to talk about, what's going on for the next month, things to look out for, program updates, things like that. So as a, as a private, non-licensed, home, we recognize that financial sustainability is really important. There are lots of programs out there that are amazing, and they cost an arm and a leg. I guess it's relatively easy to have a great program for $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month. Financial sustainability is something that we took to heart, particularly, having skin in the game, right? My brother lives with us, knowing that our homes can operate indefinitely is really important to us. So first off, all homes are deed restricted. They are owned outright by CoHome. Not to misspeak, by outright, I mean, they're, CoHome holds title to them. We do use debt financing. And one of the unique mechanisms we utilize to keep costs down is the community development fund. So when we're looking to create a new home, which typically we do around a cohort, right? We have folks apply, we try to learn about them. We have a whole process of learning about their wants and desires and their families' wants and desires, and trying to see, what is out there. Do we have anything now that could provide a good housing situation for this individual? What's the best housing situation for that individual? And is it something that CoHome can help make for them? And so when we've identified what that is, we look at making it. And so money, of course, makes that happen. So we reach out to philanthropists and lenders and foundations to solicit grants, and we will come up with a figure that we know will bring our operating costs within the financially sustainable realm. And then we put the difference, any gap there is, out there into a community development fund, which we let businesses, we have local businesses, support, foundations will support, and families can contribute to. And then when that sustainability goal is reached, then we, take the next steps, acquire the property, develop the property, do any renovations that are necessary, and move folks in. Then on an ongoing way, we keep rent, for our residents at or below the equivalent HUD rate for that type of housing. So this is really important if our residents are seeking to utilize housing assistance, whether through something like the Supportive Housing Connection housing voucher, HUD Section 8, any of those housing supports. That's the metric that they look for, and so that's one of the things we back into when we're figuring out what is kind of our development costs for a particular project. And then we have an administrative fee that supports all of the, all that's involved in, our program, whether that's the sewer bill or the CoHome social program. I don't want to go on. I'd like to leave time for questions. I'm not sure how many of you already know about us. We also have a website, cohome.org. You'll see we have an email handle, helpdesk@cohome.org, as well as a phone number. Definitely encourage you to take that information down and reach out to us if you have any questions, or if you'd like to learn about creating a CoHome for your person. Love to have those conversations. Again, just a sibling, and want to help out. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Nate. That was great, and your story was great. And Jeremy's adorable, so I'm so happy to hear you. He looks so happy in that picture. So I'd like to invite Keldrick back on the screen, and so we can address some questions that some of the audience has given us. We have a few already in place. So hi, Keldrick. I see your logo. I don't see you though.
It still doesn't.
There it is. So we have a few people say, how often does WILO accept renters? And I guess for the same, does CoHome accept any renters? And will a renter ever be pushed out of place to live because they are just a renter? And if so, do you find them a new place to live? So I'll start with you, Keldrick.
Okay, so to answer that question, our homes currently are fully occupied. And when it comes down to renting, the reason why we go through such an intense vetting process, and no, it's not 100% accurate every single time, 100% of the time, where every dynamic works out perfectly well. We're going to make sure that we give it our very best efforts, pre-vetting, and also making sure once they're in, that we have proper supports to make sure. It's never our goal to displace anyone from housing. And so we haven't had to do that, and we don't like to do, we don't want to do that. So do we push someone out? The answer is no. There are, as we are DDD service providers, if there's ever a case that we just simply cannot manage the behavior or something that's truly a medical need changed, and we're not equipped to handle that for whatever reason, and we think that person is better served in another environment, then obviously we would make a recommendation for a referral to a different type of a program. But everyone who's been with us, we've had some who've come and then moved, or some that it didn't work out for them for whatever reason, and then they move on. And then we, so every once in a while, and this in 6 years, we've grown exponentially, but there's typically not a high rate of turnover for people who are in the homes. My guys have been here for 6 years. The other house, the girls have been there for 5 years. Most of the people have been consistent, especially in the owned homes. So yeah. So there is an option to, if we have an opening because someone moved out of town or whatever, we always advertise it to support coordination agencies so that everyone knows that we have a vacancy if they want it. But typically we have our own waiting list, and we just call up somebody and they come in. Yeah. That was a long answer.
No, it's a good answer. To you, how often do you accept renters for the CoHome, or do they have to go into the house together?
No, so, our residents, I guess, technically are renters, but actually in the terms of their lease, they have an indefinite lease with us. So the leases automatically renew. The only cause that we would ever have to bring a support team together to have a conversation about would be if there was a health or safety concern about their ability to live safely in a setting. But we thankfully haven't had any issues with that.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Question for Keldrick. Before my husband and I sell our current primary residence, which is in the community where our other houses are, is there a way to convert our house into a WILO home where my husband and I would move out, but our child would stay in the home through WILO? Who would own the home? The Special Needs Trust.
Okay. Was that last part of the question? They're saying
question mark, yeah.
Okay, so they have the option to do that different ways. Either they can maintain ownership. A lot of what we do is working with families through wills and trusts, estate planning, because if you're purchasing a home, it is important that we're all on the same page of what happens to that home when you're no longer here. And so how they set that up is purely going to be their choice, and we can walk through, that whole process. But typically speaking, we haven't had it yet, even though I've been offered several that are outside of the area where I want to operate currently. But it wouldn't necessarily be a horrible situation for us to go into a home that a family already owned. The hard part about that would be, ensuring that the person who grew up in this home or been there forever, that there's still a level of a different connotation now with the home, that staff is coming in, other housemates are coming in. It's a whole different setup now. We haven't ventured down that road yet. I'd be curious to see how it would work out, though, and how we can explore it happening. But I have not done it, to be honest, yet. But I do get asked that question quite a lot, and we would explore it with the right family at the right location and right time.
Yeah, I didn't think about that part with thinking about the home and then having people come into their home. So that's
right.
Nice.
Typically, everyone having a fresh start is the way that I like to approach it. Everyone's on ground zero, and we're just navigating and figuring out the space together. But it could work for a family's financial well-being to repurpose the home that they have for a WILO home. So it is optional. We just haven't done it.
Nate, have you had anything like that where you purchased a home from another family or anything like that? Have you explored that?
So one thing that's really important to us is that CoHome owns the property. Something that makes that also important for the families typically is we are a 501c3 tax exempt organization. So we're able to take the property off the tax rolls because we're serving the social good. But also we're able to then say that we can guarantee long-term access to housing. That's also one reason why we won't rent any properties. But we are definitely open to working with families for folks who already own properties. We've had a donation of or a partial donation of a property that fit our criteria. So yeah, we're able to be pretty creative with it. We don't allow residents to kind of just graduate into a home because their family was able to donate it. That wouldn't that wouldn't work, because then the resident wouldn't actually qualify for some of the support that they're otherwise eligible for. But those are conversations we could have with a family if they were to reach out about that.
Okay, great. Well, I'll be sharing the contact information. So if this family who asked that question have two important resources they can contact to kind of explore that option. Who is the approximate what is the approximate out-of-pocket expense to reside in a WILO home or a CoHome? So I'll start with Nate, since you're on screen. What would be the approximate out-of-pocket expense?
Sure. So it depends really on what the HUD rate is for that particular property type. So if you look up the fair housing market market rents, right, FMR, fair market rates through HUD for your county, you can see what those rates are, ranging from 0 bedroom to 8 bedroom. I believe a 0 bedroom right now for Morris County is $1,086. So that is rent, and then for that 0 bedroom. And then if you look at the programming fee, that varies. I believe it's typically around $1,200 a month, but then there is a sliding scale accommodation for folks with economic need, based on state income limits. And so we have a little table we would share with you to learn if you would qualify for that, or if the resident would qualify for that. We really just follow all of the state regulations for affordable housing.
Okay, great. And Keldrick, same question to you.
Yeah. So I would say the same. There isn't a number I can give you to say, oh, this is how much it costs to be run at WILO. We have residents who are in the community care program that pays more funding for round-the-clock care. We have some who are on the supports program, tier Bs, tier As, who typically don't get a lot of funding, but they typically also don't have the same level of need. all of our residents, except for the people who purchase the homes, if you purchase a home and you own it, their children, their young adults get disqualified from the housing rental subsidy. But any other renter who comes in qualifies for, as Nate was explaining, fair market values housing. And so it's all affordable housing for them. So their rent portion would never be like, typically in a 4-bedroom home in Essex County, it's $587 per person in the home. So that would be the rent. That comes out of their Social Security typically. And then, so we do work with families a lot on complete service and management, from working with Social Security. I've been to SSI many times. I've been to interviews with DDD. We getting people, some people who we accept at their tier B in the supports program. And then we find out through living with them that their needs are really misidentified. And so what we'll do is work with families when it's time for their reassessments to say, this is what we're truly seeing in the home while he or she is living independently. And we work with families to, you know, to help get their reassessments done and to more accurately reflect what the need is. But generally speaking, we take, you know, whatever funding stream they have, be it CC community care program or supports program funding. So we have literally both in our program. We also, just to add to that, do have some who get services from the personal preference program. So if they have PPP, they're able to have their personal care aide come in at certain times to do individual activities with them, or individual skills training with them in the home as well. So we have 30+ WILO staff, but sometimes we do have people from other agencies come in through PCA to do supports as well.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Let's see, another question came. What type, and this is for Nate, what type of retail activities do you have in mind? That's a
great question. You know, this is a really exciting part because this is our first venture into mixed use building. And this is our first new construction project. So we've done pretty significant renovations before, but never new construction. So we have some really awesome partners, development partners that we're working with on this. Building's going to be right in downtown Morristown. We're right now in conversations with a couple of prospective tenants, operators for the retail space. We're not sure, and we're still taking applications. So if you have an idea from the zone accommodates anything from a cafe to a shop. Reach out, let us know.
Okay, I think that person will reach out. I know what he's thinking about. Okay, so both of you mentioned that local acceptance was important for your missions. How receptive have the local communities been to your mission? And which towns have proven most receptive to the idea of a home? This is a very good question.
All right. Well, I get excited about that question because here in Maplewood, South Orange, it's a very, I would say, liberal community. Our mayor comes to our gala every year. We actually go to a lot of the police events, the police hold National Night Out. We're actually working with our local police station and fire department to do disability registration program, so that people who have children, young adults with autism in their homes will have a registry in the police department. So if a police responds to a home, that they would already have a profile about the person with disabilities. So working with our police department here to do that. And we are active and very vocal and very visible, I would say, in our community, but in a positive, healthy, nurturing way. I would share with you before the call that this morning we had a nature adventurist come to the house and bring a kangaroo and an alligator and all this stuff. And all the residents came over to my home and did a project to his display on the yard. And I instantly texted like a few neighbors around who have children, and they brought their kids to the yard with our residents, and it's just a big community feel. So I've never felt in Maplewood, in particular, or South Orange, that we were not embraced in our community. So that's been really, really great for us here.
That's awesome to hear. Same with you, Nate. Is that similar reception in your towns and areas?
Well, I'd say we started with a little bit of pushback. I think that there's a misnomer of what special needs housing looks like, that we did struggle against. There was in Morristown some years ago a group home that had caused a lot of problems. It had a lot of issues with the operator. And so I think that colored people's perception of what we were going to do. Thankfully, all of those naysayers are now supporters and donors and come to our events. And one was helping me pick out house colors when we were painting the house. So it's been really reassuring.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it's wonderful to hear. I'm sure that's probably a concern for a lot of the families, that they make sure that they're welcomed into these towns and these communities. Does it mean that prior to the individual moving into a house, he or she will go through your program on living skills? So I'm assuming basically they have to go, do they have to go through some sort of program prior to be able to live in the house, like kind of learning skills?
We do an intake process where we'll discuss with the family. They fill out a form that talks about their level of independence, their ability to consume alcohol or not, bathroom etiquette, assistance with toileting, hygiene, all of the, like how to literally wake up and go to sleep and wake up again with a person from day in to day out. What are their care needs? And sometimes that's misidentified and misplaced, but we have that as a framework for how we approach housing with people. And so we typically, I don't think we've ever just had someone who we met, filled out a paper, move into a home. That's not the way we do it. So generally we would have, in some of the homes that are already established, the individual would come over for dinner. And just a simple 2-hour dinner. When we have dinner, then we walk around our neighborhood, and we really spend the time dating the person because we want it, not even for our own sake, but for their sake. If they're moving into a place that they're going to identify as home, we really want them to be making the right choice for them. We can handle what we have to handle and work around things and, request referrals or if we need to, but we never want to do that. We really want to make sure we get it right. And the way that we do that is really take the time to get to know people. So it'll go from dinner. Pre-COVID, it will be dinner one night. On another weekend, they would come for an overnight in the home, in one of the homes. And then, progressively work our way to full acceptance into the program in terms of housing. But that's, it's a process that's been a little bit slowed down due to COVID, but we're thankfully right now at capacity, and we're, but we have one intake that we're actually doing at this moment post-COVID that would make us at full capacity. And we saw how challenging that our current standards were to have someone come in, be around us, go back home to their parents who have compromised needs, and then, come back and forth. So we just kind of streamlined some of the process for this one occasion. But there is a process that doesn't include just someone just coming to live in and get skills training. We do provide individual supports, I will say. So if a family is thinking about housing and they want us to come in and get to know the person, they're young adult, then we will, where it's available. Now COVID, like I said, has messed a lot of things up. But prior to COVID, we have families who would just contract with us to come and provide community-based supports, individual supports, to do banking, hygiene, all of those things. So we got to know them in their home setting, which also gives us an opportunity to see how they perform in our setting. So we do a little bit of both. That's
interesting. How about you, Nate? Is that a similar process? How do you transition or learn about your potential intakes?
Yeah, a little different. We do, each individual gets to go through, a person-centered transition with us. So everything in our program is person-centered. So there's no process that we say, this is the process for everyone coming into our program. Of course, there's some core things, right, that, everyone has to do, from, filling out the initial application that gets everything started. But as we, progress and get to know an individual, we figure out what is the right transition for them. So that can take, 6 months, I think, was our longest transition. And we've had transitions take a month or so. We want folks to feel really comfortable moving into a home. And so that can look like coming over for all of the activities that we have, in a week, in a month, kind of trying to act like a resident without sleeping over. That can be a couple of overnights here, with going back to their childhood home on weekends, vice versa. we really try to figure out what's the right fit for the individual. And then, yeah, it's really all a conversation to have with, the individual, their family, their team of supports.
Since I have you, one of the questions came through about, do the neurotypical residents get trained about living with individuals with special needs?
Great question. Yes. It's a little bit of an arduous process, but so far they've been good sports. So our residential advisors go through a process. I'd say there are 4 or 5 steps to it, including a 2-part orientation and training that we run. Everyone, of course, goes through the typical background check. And we have several opportunities to meet them, introduce them to our families, the residents with whom they're going to be living. If it's a new home, we'll actually move the RAs in first, so they can, get accustomed to the home and have the residents start their transitions while the home is occupied. So they have that baseline of supports. We have folks reach out to be RAs, everyone from, a sibling of a resident to local special needs teachers, folks in a grad program to study special needs. We have a medical student who's in her residency, and we know the stability in the homes is really important, so we try to have folks long term. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we just lost our longest term RA who got furloughed from work and was on a work visa, so she had to move out of the country. So that was sad for us, but we've had a really great experience, with our RAs.
That's great. That's good to hear. So another question for both of you. So what if a person has an ongoing medical condition such as type 1 diabetes? Is there a live-in nurse or an EMT or a person trained for a medical emergency? So Nate, since you're on screen, I'll start with you.
Sure. So again, everything's person-centered. So all those kind of questions for us can be yes. Where we create a support plan around the individual. So you're not moving into a home and we're saying this is the cookie cutter staffing that we're able to offer. We have folks really across the spectrum in terms of abilities and acuities, whether that's a medical acuity or behavioral. So, without knowing the individual case, absolutely there could be a medical person. CoHome wouldn't provide someone in the home to do that, but we could definitely bring in someone to meet that person's individual needs.
Okay, good to know. And Keldrick, how about you? I know you mentioned a nurse was on staff
Yeah.
at one point, so.
Yeah, so we do have a full-time LPN on staff, but we also utilize if need be. Now we have literally the full gamut of needs, from seizure disorder. We have some that take injections for various things. We have VNS magnet usage for seizures. We have literally a full range of health and medical needs. But the LPN obviously can't be everywhere all the time. We do utilize services and sometimes we will hire a certified home health aide to work one-to-one with someone who has those complex medical needs. It's important to realize that even though most of our guys don't have that need today, tomorrow they may, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they may. So it's important that we as an organization be able to adapt to whatever their needs are, because we want people to be live in place for as long as possible, without having to go to be in WILO for 20 years and then now they have to go find a nursing facility. So we are prepared to, as an organization, evolve to meet the needs of that people have. We anticipate that we may have homes that need wheelchair accessibility. We may have people who definitely need more personalized medical care. So we are prepared to provide that. And in some cases, even now, we've had to provide it.
Great. I'm sure a lot of families are happy to hear that. So we're getting some questions about, Keldrick, since you're on screen, you mentioned a waiting list. That you're at capacity. Do you have a current waiting list? And when is the right time to apply to these programs? So kind of give us some insight there on what do we look at for if I'm a family?
I wish I had an answer about when the right time is. What I can say is that when it's the right person and the right time and the right circumstances, with all these houses that are purchased thus far, the stars had to align. There was a process to that happening. I never forced anything. I've had people who have approached me about buying homes that I have not worked with because it just wasn't the right move for WILO. I felt for us as an organization with that particular family. And there's a lot of different extenuating circumstances as to why that might be. But literally, I want to make sure that for us as an agency, for the family as a whole, and the person, most importantly, who's receiving services, that we're able to, on all levels, meet this person's needs. And so when I say waiting list, we have people who we don't keep an active waiting list, like, you know, the housing waiting list for DDD, like that sort of thing. We have people who are interested in housing. They let us know that they're ready. They let us know what their funding is. And that if we have an availability at, you know, any of our houses, that they're ready. Again, I will carry a deficit or a vacant bed rather than just throwing someone in a home because they have a budget. It's very important to us that we be able to have synergy and to be able to meet that person's needs. So I won't necessarily just throw someone in. And so if someone is interested in housing as a purchaser, that's generally, believe it or not, easier conversation to have than renting. I've done it. I've been at that rodeo many times now. So when it comes to purchasing a home, I meet with families all the time. Some are just purely informational. They want to get information, know what the process is. And when they're ready, they'll call me. I don't typically follow up people and say, hey, are we going to go look at houses? And that's just not what I do. When they're ready, and if they have settled within their heart and soul that WILO is the right program for them, then they'll call. And then when they're ready, we go look at houses. And then we go through the rest of the process. So there is no waiting list per se. We have a list of people who are interested, either in renting or in buying. But, you know, when they're ready, they make a move.
Would you say the first step is to reach out to you? Is just
just reach out and we'll have a conversation. If it's the right thing, I have people who come to me back and forth for 6 months before they said, you know what, we've looked at now 18 other programs and this is what we want. And then we go look at a house, you know, we figure out, you know, the rest of the process. We go through the process together, but yeah, it can happen when they're ready.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
And Nate, for you, how is that? Is there a waiting list, or what? How would you how would you direct a family? What's the best first step?
So we have something that we refer to as the active wait list. This is folks who are actively looking for, you know, housing now, and then we you know, have a general, you know, listserv of folks who are more generally interested in the program. For folks on the active wait list, that means we are actively looking to help find them housing. So to actively working with the families, right? It's really a partnership. So we start the process to learn about what the ideal housing situation is for that individual, and can we create that for them? So is there a wait list? Yes. But it's not a strict linear wait list, right? It's about what opportunities come up when they come up. So that's kind of how real estate works. It's very different than maybe DDD imagines with theirs, where, you know, they'll lock up a spot if, you know, they need to place somebody who, you know, needs wheelchair access to a room. You know, that person has to get placed before someone, you know, past them. What we look at is, you know, what are the individual needs, and can we find a property that meets an individual's needs, and do we have other housemates who could join them in a cohort and be compatible with them? So that's kind of how that process works, and it can take anywhere from, you know, 6 months to a couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, great. I mean, so we're almost at time. We have one more minute, and I'm going to just ask one more question because it's a good one. It's about privacy. And I think it's, do you allow the use of cameras in your home? And I think in this day and age, a lot of families are probably concerned about privacy. So for both of you, do you guys allow for that?
All right. So we treat our homes as our private homes, you know, so we don't allow cameras in our properties, generally speaking. External cameras around the perimeter of the homes, yes. If a family wants to have a camera in his or her loved one's bedroom, private bedroom, we often give them the opportunity to do that. We haven't really had it. We had one who chose that, but it's really because the person who we're caring for was nonverbal, and they just wanted to just watch her go to bed and, you know, all that stuff. And they don't even look at it anymore. But starting out, they wanted that reassurance that she's
like the baby monitor.
exactly. That's all it was, you know. But generally speaking, we say no. You know, we have young adults with disabilities as well as neurotypical staff who are, you know, in the homes together all the time. And the way our model works is this: if it ever feels like a place that is a job, then the quality gets diminished. And so we want our home to stay as much of a home as possible, and not have it be a place of work. And I think that's one key element that has helped us survive and to thrive in the way that we have.
And Nate, to you too, the same question. And then
Yeah, interesting. I think maybe you can clarify. We're not referring to, like, you know, someone having a camera on their cell phone. We're referring to like a monitored camera.
yeah, I believe it's a household, you know,
Yeah,
monitoring camera.
Not a nanny cam.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we don't do that. We will at a property have like safety cameras, you know, exterior to the home, you know, monitoring, you know, outside for security, but we won't violate, you know, someone's privacy inside a home.
Great.
Right.
Well, we're at time. I want to say a huge thank you both to, it was great to listen to your stories and watch your models and listen to kind of the opportunities. Again, this series has been about hope, and I think a lot of families are excited to hear all the options that are available for their young adults. I'm going to just let Bruce, I think, when you are, I know you want to say a few words before we head off. So Bruce, I'll hand this over to you.
I want to thank our two presenters for their excellent presentations. And it's obvious it's not just a job, but it's really a passion from your heart that you're committed to. So we're very fortunate to have such very creative models. And I want to thank you so much for presenting tonight. I want to also thank Melissa Cooper and Brenda Considine. You know, Melissa for narrating tonight, and also for serving as moderator, and also for Brenda Considine for helping put this together. And I also want to acknowledge, you know, we have TD Bank is supporting our providing workshops, you know, in this area and serving as a resource. And I want to thank the families. And I just want you to know, I encourage you to attend the workshop that we're having with Brad Walker. I know Next for Autism really chose the program Brad formed as a model program. So I think you'll find that interesting as well. And again, it's very important we're smart about our finances to maximize services. And I really encourage you on October 15th. I've sat through a lot of presentations on finances and, you know, to meet a special needs. And I think I have found Dan Brown to be the most informative. So I encourage you to do that as well. And I wish everyone a good evening. And I'm really pleased that Spectrum 360 can provide this important resource to you. All right, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a wonderful night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.